So we have started this series where I am encouraging you to actually read through the book of Proverbs. That challenge you to read a chapter a day, and anticipation of each of that. So we are up, as of tomorrow, we'd be at chapter 14. And then through next Sunday would be 14 through 20. So I am challenged as preaching this morning to find something within that 14 to 20 verses, that chapters 14 to 20, that we can talk about, that in relation to wisdom. Now, the thing is Proverbs, as we pointed out, is like a textbook to teach people the idea of wisdom, to teach what's important, and so it's all over the map because there are lots of things. I mean, it doesn't follow, like you have a proverb and then the other proverb after it may seem to be totally different. And I think that's in many ways intentional because of the idea that wisdom, it's more than just moral goodness. I mean, moral goodness is important, but wisdom is what we do in the 80 to 90% of life where the moral rules don't apply. And what I mean by that is if we think about this past 24 hours, if you think about yesterday morning, since yesterday morning, how many decisions did you have to make where the moral code, maybe the Ten Commandments or laws or demands that Jesus had said that he put, that applying the rule would have worked? My guess is not many of us have had to struggle through that in the past 24 hours. But there were probably lots of instances where you could make or not some wise decisions about your life, about your day, about your relationships, about connection. There's plenty of opportunities for that. And so this is, Proverbs is with that idea. And so I have decided as I'm looking through these chapters, I want to talk about the issue of anger. Because it comes up in a number of areas there in Proverbs, and not only in these, but elsewhere as well. And I think we are in desperate need of it. We are in desperate need of the idea of understanding anger, how that works, dealing with it, because it is impacting our country right now heavily. It impacts our families. It impacts our communities. How we handle it or don't determines so much. We will not be wise. You will not be wise in how you live if you aren't wise about your anger. So here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm just going to read a number of Proverbs in these chapters that have to do with anger. I'll refer to most of them throughout this time, but let me just start by reading them. Oh, by the way, in your sermon outline, if you're following along, I made so many typos with the verse references. If you base it off that, you're going to be lost. Listen, I tried to correct them here, so the references on the slides are hopefully more accurate. Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly. A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. Whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city. Good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offense. A man of great wrath will pay the penalty, for if you deliver him, you will only have to do it again. All right. I jumped ahead there, but you got it. I want us to understand some things from these chapters about the idea of anger. And, of course, the first one that I just went ahead to in the first blanket outline is to understand that anger is a sledgehammer. I don't know if you're familiar with using sledgehammers. I know a number of you have, but the idea of a sledgehammer is you're using something that's heavy, that has a certain amount of leverage to do something with explosive power. You're going to hammer in a stake that is going to have to go past some really tough ground to get in. You're going to have to hit it hard with lots of dynamism, lots of power, and the sledgehammer helps you do that. Or maybe to break some rocks. It is explosive. There was a time when we were we had to do some repair as a church with the ground well, the drain for the water in the parking lot, and it had gotten plugged up, and so we had to literally break through some concrete to do it. And a number of us were there, and I remember, getting to use a sledgehammer, which is super fun, to try to break through that concrete and learn how, the leverage and trying to get it just right as you're breaking through. And it was explosive in power, breaking through the stone. Matter of fact, at one point it broke and shards of concrete flew everywhere. And one of our guys even got hit with some of those because he was staying a little too close and that kind of stuff. And so realizing that explosive nature of using a sledgehammer, I think, is a really good image of the idea of anger. Anger, it can be that. And it is explosive and is designed to damage and can have unintentional damage in a lot of areas. Maybe you've seen this, right? I mean, certainly being chronically angry, struggling with anger yourself, will cause damage to you. It literally can affect your body. I mean, here in Proverbs, it says, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. For those of you who don't remember, when you're talking about Hebrew poetry, they do it in these couplets where the things line up. So a heart, peace, life to the body, envy rots the bones. So they're trying to make these combinations between a heart at peace being envy and giving life versus rotting, bones versus body. And so the concept, at least at the beginning, is peace is helpful for the body. In many ways, anger, chronic anger, we know. Like, it causes tons of problems, the increased possibility of heart attack, high blood pressure. I mean, it literally has an effect on the body. But, man, I don't want to talk too much about that, because I think probably more profound is the fact that it also causes damage in our relationships and our community. Like I said, we're seeing that right now. But a hot-tempered person stirs up conflict. But the one who patient calms the quarrel. The hot person is stirring up conflict. We are stirring up conflict. When we get angry, we stir it up in terms of our friends and our family and our communities, and it just feeds on itself. I'm going to talk a little bit about this because I feel like we need to address it a little bit. But as we see what's going on in our nation with a number of the protests, and you watch the videos of what happens and that kind of stuff, of just the day-to-day protest. I mean, you see this kind of anger being displayed, right? You see people deliberately trying to stir up conflict. That's the point. And then we end up having, potentially by the people who share this, especially if they're getting little curated little bits of the video with a design to stir up conflict in you so that you can jump to one side or the other so you can have the conflict. That the whole idea is to set up outrage so that you can be upset, that other people can be upset, and try to get everybody to be upset. One of the things that is particularly devastating in that conflict is that it becomes a win-lose conflict. Anger in the midst of a conflict brings it to a win-lose scenario. And by that, I mean this. Maybe you're familiar with Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he uses this language to talk about resolving things and how we approach arguments. Sometimes we can be so petty and mean and dumb that we just lose. Like, I'm willing to lose as long as you're willing to lose more. Like, I'm going to make you lose more, and I'm willing to hurt so that you hurt even more. We do some of that sometimes. And then there's, of course, what he advocates, which is a win-win, which is win-win or no deal, that we're going to come to some kind of resolution that you feel like you get to win and I get to win, like we both get something out of this that's better off than we were before, and we both win. But anger sets up a typical win-lose. One of us is going to win, one of us is going to lose. Since I'm the angry one, I'm setting that up, and I'm going to force the fact that you lose versus I win. I'm going to use whatever power and influence and what I have to make sure I win and you don't. And then, of course, very often we respond in anger and say, okay, I adopt that. Well, let's take the win-lose. But I'm going to win, and you're going to lose. So that kind of conflict is stirred up and is destructive. The thing is what's also interesting is anger, as we enter into it, has a high potential to destroy us from being able to be wise in the moment. Whoever is patient has great understanding, but who is quick-tempered displays folly. So it's in patience that we can be understanding, and we can understand and learn and be wise, and we're much more adept at being able to figure out what is the important thing and to deal with the important stuff and to deal with it well. But in the midst of anger, we can do foolish things. I mean, have you ever been in an argument, you've been something when you were angry, and then later when you calm down, that you're just like, okay, I was acting like a fool? Have you? No? No, Bill? Only you. Only me. Okay, fine. Only me. I'm the only one who's ever done that. But let me tell you, you know why you end up feeling like a fool? Because you were a fool. Like, that's how it works. Like, we can be foolish in our anger, and we end up doing things that later we're like, man, if I hadn't been so angry, I wouldn't have been so stupid. And so it has the potential to remove you from the situation of displaying wisdom. But one other aspect that you need to know, not only in terms of your own anger, but definitely in terms of your own, but in terms of others, is to understand how incredibly addictive it is. Did I even put that down? No. The next blank in your outline. Man, it's bad. That power is addictive. Maybe I shouldn't go on vacation. This is what happens when I come back. Typos, missed slides, whatever. The next line, that power is addictive. Here it is in Proverbs 19. A man of great wrath will pay the penalty. For if you deliver him, if you deliver the person who gets angry from the consequences of their action, you deliver them from what happened, you're going to have to do it again and again and again. Because what we find is that anger and outrage, man, it feels awesome. Right? Like you can start to be in this argument and you realize, man, if I can just get angry, and I know I shouldn't, but it's going to feel good. And you just want to, and you end up doing that and just add to the anger in the situation. And there's something really, really addictive about that. I think as we are looking at our world, I think a lot of it has to do with kind of the performative nature of anger. Like, we can be angry on video, and we can have that shared virally, and how great that feels, and go to the next one. And it is super addictive. There was a protest that was going on 5 years or so ago down in Gresham. It was based upon some video that had been released from Barlow High School. And something the cheerleaders had some private video that got leaked out that was really offensive to somebody, and they got up and were demanding that it be taken care of, demanding whatever, just in front of cameras with the bullhorn and the megaphone, demanding action and being outraged. And as what happens is the Barlow cheerleaders, apparently they decided, you know what, you're right. This was offensive. We shouldn't have done this. We're going to take it down. We apologize. And then what happens? Well, just as you would expect, the person said, okay, that's what I was after. Thank you. Solve the problem. Let's go on. No, that's not what happened. Well, it's too late. I want to still be angry, and continued to scream and demand more and more, because in part, I think that outrage, that anger is so addictive. I want to keep going. Look how much spotlight I give. Look how morally righteous I am. Look how great I am. And it gets that attention, and it's so addictive. And even strangely, well, we don't even necessarily admit it. We don't necessarily even admit our anger. We can be angry and we won't even admit it. I'm not angry. I'm morally outraged, or I'm not angry. I'm an advocate, or I'm not, whatever it is. Like, we don't even own our anger all the time. And one of the reasons it becomes so addictive is because, I don't know, a lot of you maybe don't remember this time, but it wasn't too long ago. Well, maybe 40 years ago. The advice had been primarily in psychology and stuff, take your anger and make sure you vent it. go beat up a beanbag. I literally remember my parents telling me that. When you get angry, just you've got this beanbag chair, because everybody did in the 70s. Man, that wasn't 40 years ago, was that? It was 7. So anyway, I remember even destroying this little beanbag thing and going, oh, okay, now things must be better. And you come to realize very quickly, this image of us having a bucket of anger, and if we just pour it out, that everything will be better, is so not right. We are factories. And if we decide to ramp up production of anger, it's going to produce more. And it can produce more. And we have to be very strategic about that, because in doing so, it just becomes addictive. What starts as an action can become a habit, which can become a lifestyle, which ultimately becomes our character. The addictive nature, we need to be aware of that. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about the sledgehammer of anger, is sometimes sledgehammers are exactly what we need. See, here's the problem. Sometimes anger is the right thing. Notice what it says here in 16:32. Whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty. I like also the way the NIV, I'm using this one because I use anger, but the NIV says better is than being a warrior. One who is patient is better than a warrior. Better, slow to anger. Realize that the ideal throughout Scripture is not no anger. The ideal is slow anger. Slow to anger. That's the way it talks about it. I mean, what do you make of the fact, if you're reading through the Old Testament, and you see a number of times, and it's not just the Old Testament, that where God gets angry? What do you make of that? I know some people have a horrible problem with it. They have a problem because they say, no, you don't understand, Bill. I don't believe in an Old Testament God who's angry. I believe in a New Testament God who's loving and forgiving. That's the God I believe in, the God who's loving. But I want to tell you that, yeah, that's true. He did get angry. We're going to mention that one in a second. But the thing is that is there. Okay, this might be a little provocative. Let me go to Ephesians real quick. In your anger, do not sin, says Paul. In your anger, do not sin. Now, when he's saying this, the thing is, in your anger is in the imperative form. It's like almost the equivalent of saying, be angry and do not sin. And I think you could make a case that there's an actual command to be angry in the midst of this, that we are supposed to be angry. But be angry and do not sin. But even if you don't do that, just the fact that, when you're angry, do not sin, could be taken very much the way Jesus, for example, says, when you fast, do it this way. There's implicit that that's going to happen. Of course it's going to happen. You're going to fast. That's what you should be doing. Of course you're going to be angry. That's what you should be doing. The thing is how you handle that anger. Because what is happening in the midst of this, I'm going to make the case that if you are never angry, it's because you don't really love. The idea of a dichotomy between love and anger is a false dichotomy. People who love, and they love something deeply, profoundly, and that thing that they love is threatened, will get angry. You should get angry. If you aren't willing to get angry when the very thing, the people, whatever it is that you desperately love is threatened, then I argue you're not really loving. And so if you look to the Old Testament and you see an angry God, look at what he's getting angry about. It would be a great study. Just go and look at it. I can tell you, basically it falls into two categories. He gets angry when people refuse to take care of those who are poor and desperate and left. He also gets angry with sin. Idols is a big one, but there are other things of holiness. He cares deeply about those. He gets angry about that. He gets angry when people threaten those that he loves. When you look at Jesus, right, and he is there and he's in the temple and he makes whips and he's knocking over tables. And when it says he made whips, I don't think he's just going like, look at the neat sound I can make. I think he's like, get out of here. Like he is not calm about this. He is angry. And it says very specifically why he's angry is because people have turned the holiest place that the Gentiles can enter, that's supposed to be a place of prayer, into a marketplace. He's like, absolutely not. So looking what he gets angry about is so key. So if we look at the fact that the idea is to be slow in anger, I don't know. Well, where's the problem? The problem for us is this. The problem is we have really disordered loves. This term, disordered love, is a term that St. Augustine, a 4th century writer, probably a fantastic preacher and thinker, and he talks about this disordered love, and he says, it's if we think about the things in this world, God made it, and they're good, and these things can be good, and we should be. It's great, when things bad happen to us, we can be disappointed, and when good things happen, we can be excited, and there are things that are good, and we can be, wanting, pleasant experiences and great vacations, and we want good jobs, and we want good things, and that's okay. The problem is when we take the good things and put them out of order where they're supposed to be and make them more primary, prioritized things. Maybe even to the ultimate thing. That's what idols are. Idols are when we take something and make it the ultimate. Where God is supposed to be the ultimate, and all these other good things underneath that, we disorder it and put these things that we love too much. And because we have disordered love, we get angry when our idols, when our disordered loves are threatened. Way beyond what it should be, because we don't have the right priorities. It's so complicated. Okay, I'm all over the map. I get it. I understand that. I'm just giving you food for thought. Or if you're hoping I tie this up in a nice little bow, I don't have that for us. But I can tell you, as a parent, and you have a kid, and your kid doesn't do what you want him to do, there may be a part that you're angry because you see the destructive nature of what it can do in their lives, and you want to focus on that and change that, and you long for something better for the kid. But sometimes our anger can be, we're actually angry because we were threatened. Our authority was put to the test, and we are willing to quash our child as opposed to quash the behavior that's being destructive in them. Super subtle difference. And do you see how subtle and destructive it is? Because we could actually be doing one. I could be more interested in how they made me look and how I look as a parent and the image of my child that has been destroyed. And I'm angry at that. And I end up, but I say, no, really I'm just angry because it's for their own good. You see how my heart can trick myself that way? And which is it? Which one is it really? It's so hard to know. And so one of the things we should ask ourselves to test that in our disordered loves is, what are we defending? Because we often defend the wrong things. What am I trying to defend in my anger? What am I trying to say this has to be dealt with? I had a friend, again, social media, he's putting stuff online because he sees some things happening on the news or in videos that are being shared just yesterday. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to keep it general because since we're online, and this may be looked at years from now, we're on to the next thing, and so I don't want it too particular because I think this is generally applicable. But he looks at this news scenario, and he admits, he goes, I am furious right now. He said, but I thought he was really wise in the fact that he says, the thing is I know I'm angry. I just don't know if it's righteous anger or petty rage. And I need to pray about that. And I'm like, man, that's so good. Absolutely you do. Can you please not do it on social media? Can you just not? Like you are adding to the rage and the bait in a time when you tell yourself you don't really even know where it's coming from. How about then you do the internal work? You ask God, and then no one is begging you on your hot take on the news today. How about you sit back, deal with what God has in you and in your heart, figure out what's making you angry, and then if there is something that has to happen, sure. But not there. Notice here in Proverbs 24:29 or 14:29. I don't remember. Again, whoever is patient has great understanding. See, I told you there are tons of typos. But whoever has patience has great understanding. You're going to have to be patient if you want to answer this question. You're going to have to be slow to anger to find out what's really going on, what's really in your heart, and to ask the Lord. And you're going to have to do it in good faith. Because I tell you, your brain will tell you all kinds of reasons you should be angry. Well, I'm just a passionate guy. I'm just an advocate for the downtrodden. I just tell it like it is. You will come up with all kinds of excuses to excuse your behavior. You need to go to the Lord and figure out what is it that I'm truly trying to defend. Because we're very likely to try to defend the wrong things, and we're also very likely to destroy the wrong things. Despite what it seems like, a sledgehammer is a surgical instrument. I don't mean literally surgery. If your surgeon brings a sledgehammer, run. But I mean in the sense that it's precise, that when you're learning to use a sledgehammer, it's all about learning how to control it and get it precisely where you want. You're not just swinging it willy-nilly and just doing whatever. You have to hit what you're after, and exactly that, to have the most impact. The whole idea is to bring it all to a very specific place. Okay. There was an article that I had read this week that was really trying to talk about our modern day protests. I'm going to use this again as an example. This isn't political in the sense that I'm taking sides. I think the idea I'm trying to make here is that sometimes we need to be angry, and we need very precisely and surgically to go after what it is, right? But I don't think that's what's happening, at least as much as the news tells it. Here's the way the article puts it. Many protesters clearly see themselves as heirs to the civil rights movement, right? They think, I am out there defending civil rights. I am out there defending this. He says, but the comparison often falters. When we look back at Birmingham in the 60s, we see protesters who faced violence and humiliation with restraint and dignity, exposing injustice without reveling in it. Today's protests frequently project a tone of sarcasm, contempt, and theatrical outrage. Rather than appealing to the conscience of a broader society, they often signal belonging to an in-group that already agrees. Now, I'm not claiming whether he's accurate or not. What I want to tell you is whether this is a protest or whether this is getting angry over something with your kids or in society generally or in your own life, as you look at it, well, let's look at the words of Martin Luther King Jr., right? Back from the 60s. Actually, this was in 57. He gave a sermon at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And he puts it this way. He says, with every ounce of our energy, we must continue to rid this nation of the incubus of segregation. But, here's the big but, I haven't heard this anywhere recently when it comes to the demonstrations of our day, the outrage of our own lives, the anger on social media or in public scenarios when somebody shortchanges you or doesn't give you chicken nuggets or whatever it might be. With every ounce of energy, we must continue to rid this nation of the incubus of segregation, but we shall not in the process relinquish our privilege and our obligation to love. While abhorring segregation, we shall love the segregationists. This is the only way to create the beloved community. You hear what's going on? The difference is he's very clear about what we're after. We're after segregation, not segregationists. We're after convincing others. We're after a very surgical strike with our sledgehammer of anger to effect change, to convince others. And so if you find in your anger that you're just wildly swinging, you're probably not doing it for just cause. And this idea of just cause and how important it is. Look at this phrase. Here in Proverbs, right? I know I'm in chapter 25, and we're really only doing 14 to 20. And so I went outside of that, so you can sue me later. But right now, if your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. Your enemy. Your enemy. Part of wisdom is knowing when to just say, okay, I am going to bring peace. I'm going to bring food. I'm going to give in the midst of this. All right, wrap it up. 3 things. Here's 1. Test yourself. Will you just, when you find yourself getting angry, or especially if you have a habit of it, will you just try as best as you can to remember, just calm down in the moment and ask in good faith, ask the Lord, what is it that I'm really trying to defend here? Ask him, am I going about it the right way? Second piece of advice. I was looking all over for a verse in Scripture that says this. It doesn't. But I think if I were writing it, I would say, thou shalt not be on social media if you have a problem with anger. I don't know what else to tell you. A culture, and whether it's social media or the news or whatever of the day or whatever's coming next, that there are people wanting to feed your outrage, and we have a country and a society that really pushes this idea of outrage, and you don't want to be caught in that cycle. So maybe if you struggle, just back off. And then are you going about it in a wise way to actually solve the problem? If you can't answer those well, then your loves are probably disordered, and you're defending the wrong thing, and you're destroying the wrong thing. Give to your enemies. God has lots of reason to be angry at you and me. The sin in my life that impacts me, God gets angry at. The sin in my life that ends up impacting you and the people I love and care about, and society, he gets angry, and he wants that dealt with. And I don't know if you remember, but Jesus, right before he goes to the cross and he's praying in the garden, and he says, let this cup pass from me. Do you remember that? Do you have any idea what the cup is? Overwhelmingly in Scripture, the word cup is to represent the cup of God's anger, his wrath. That Jesus said, I am going to take it. I will absorb it. I will be wise. I will give and take. I will take the pain. I will take the penalty. We will bring this in the midst of the conflict that you can understand. I care deeply about the sin, about the brokenness of the world, but on the other hand, I care deeply about you. And if we have a God of the universe that can look at us and stay his wrath, be slow to anger because of his deep love for us, would we not want to join him in that work and be slow to anger for others as we ourselves have been forgiven? Let's pray. So, Lord, I feel like there's so many places I can take this. I'd love to take this and say, Lord, please bring calm to our nation. Please bring wise and patient people with clearness and understanding who will speak the words of calm to lessen the conflict. It's so tempting to think about those in families and oh, this is the problem one, and let's elbow them and get them to listen to this so that they will do more. But Lord, I just overwhelmingly hear that you say first and foremost, for me to be wise is to be slow to anger. That applies with the idiots on the road, the idiots in my community, the idiots on the news, and maybe the idiot within. Lord, if you are calling me to be angry, to stop something, then I want to be bold enough to do it. I want to, in zeal, to go after what it is, but have me do it in such a way that continues to keep my priorities right, that I am deeply in love with you. I want to do what you want. And that these other things that I long for the sin and the brokenness to be absolved, not the people that I would otherwise describe as my enemies. Because it's how you treated me. I signed on to the team that says, love the sinner while you hate the sin. And that you showed that love for me on the cross. So Lord, once again, forgive me. Forgive me for not forgiving enough. Forgive me for trying to live life in a way that's opposite of how you showed me. I give myself to you. In Jesus' name. Amen? All right, well, let's have a few moments of open worship. If God puts something on your heart, you can share it. I'll close this in a couple minutes.